Bill Robinson and the Glass Ceilings of Tap Dancing. Being one of the few solely American art forms, tap dancing was born from a blend of African and European dance traditions. This came primarily from African rhythm dancing, with some influences from Irish step dancing and English clogging. It grew into being an integral part of American culture through its heavy appearance in minstrel shows and vaudeville in the late 19th century and early 20th century. Most commonly associated with white men like Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly, most of the innovations of tap dancing came from black performers, like William Henry Lane, also called Master Juba, the creator of the art form, and Cora Lared, John Bubbles, and perhaps most importantly, Bill Robinson. Bill Bojangles Robinson, while being one of the most noted and influential performers of his time, had very little formal schooling. By 8 years old, he was dancing for pennies on the streets, and shortly after that he started performing in touring shows for a living, eventually going on to perform on the vaudeville circuit as well as in many films. One of his most famous performances was his Stair Dance, which he also performed in the film The Little Colonel alongside Shirley Temple. Many of his other performances with Shirley Temple were very integral in him growing as a performer in the public view. One of the most important things to note about tap dancing of the time was that there was still a very strong prevalence of the influence of minstrelsy. This is also true for many of the other performing arts in America in this time period. This is not only true for the styles present at the time, but also for the culture of minstrelsy itself and that which it surrounds. This included blackface, segregation of performers, as well as many of the comedy tropes being based on the mockery of black people and black culture. This continued on past the 19th century into the early 20th century, as well as some marks of it still being left today. Bill Robinson was one of the first to go against and fight back against all of these cultures. First and most notably, he broke the two-colored rule, which was a policy often shown in much of vaudeville at the time that stated that no black performer can perform in anything but a group of two or more. They did not allow solos for black people at that time, as it was a predominantly white performers and for predominantly white audiences. He also refused to perform in blackface, as this is something that was expected of anyone portraying black characters, no matter of their race. Robinson was also the first black performer to dance on screen with a white person, whilst dancing in The Little Colonel with Shirley Temple. Not only that, but the two of them broke cultural barriers when the film portrayed the two of them holding hands on screen, as this is something that had not been seen at that time. Another notable thing about Robinson is that he held the most formal attire at all times on vaudeville. He was often seen in a tux or a suit and tie, and most commonly and iconically, a top hat and tails. This is because he wanted to portray the highest rank and poise, and he did not want to stoop down to the slave characters that were often portrayed by many black performers at that time in white-produced films and productions. Of other things to note about Bill Robinson, he was at one point the highest paid black performer of his time, making up to $6,600 a week in a given year. Despite this, he was kept from eating with and being in the same hotels as many of his fellow white performers. Despite the barriers he broke in the performance world, he was still barred for being a black man. On top of this, he often felt demeaned by Hollywood, as he was forced to be in the slave roles that he tried so hard to avoid in vaudeville. At the end of his life, he was close to bankrupt due to his heavy addiction to gambling, but also due to his generous giving to those struggling during the Great Depression. His funeral was attended by 500,000 people, the largest one seen at that time in New York City, and many donations were given to the service. This shows the impact that he had on the performers of the time and the culture of America in his day.